On the podcast today, I have Tim Grover, who is a special guest. You may have seen him if you watched the docuseries The Last Dance, which I've actually talked about on this podcast before. Incredible series on HBO documenting what it took for the Chicago Bulls to achieve their dynasty in the 90s. And Tim was the personal trainer for Michael Jordan for many years, as well as Kobe Bryant and tons of other really top athletes in the world. So we chat a lot about what he considers winning and a lot of misconceptions about the word and how it can be misconstrued and how he thinks about it. And I think that this is just, if you're trying to make any change in your life, let alone something about health or anything else, mindset, how you approach things and how you sort of stack momentum is extremely important to get where you want to go, no matter where that is. So we dissect a lot of how he used to work with all the top athletes in the world to achieve the same thing. So maybe it's a little intimidating at first and can be a little masculine, but trust me, there are some certain knowledge drops in this one, and Tim's a super great guy. So tune in and I hope you guys enjoy. This episode of The Natural State is sponsored by Ned. Ned is an incredible company that makes a lot of CBD products, and you guys can probably go back to some of my episodes and realize that I have been a CBD skeptic for a very long time. I think that it's really hard in this industry that's exploding to have really high quality products that actually do anything. I tried a bunch of different CBD brands before this one, and unless they had THC in them as well, not enough to get high, but just enough to amplify the effects of CBD, I didn't feel anything until I tried Ned and then was completely blown away. I'd been using their products before they sponsored the show for about 4 to 6 months and have noticed a huge increase the nights that I use their product, about 25 milligrams, so 50 milligrams per night of the CBD. And I sleep way better. But then also the most interesting part is my HRV, as tracked by my Oura Ring, the next morning is about 20 points higher the day that I use CBD versus not. I also have not been doing a lot of social drinking as of this year. So anybody who's been following my stuff knows that I've sort of been taking the backseat to any sort of glass of wine here, drink there, to take the edge off. And the last few months, I'm sure everybody in the world feels a little stressed out. And I've been doing the same amount, like 25 to 50 milligrams, to sort of replace that glass of wine, to wind down and de-stress. And it's been pretty remarkable to pull down the edge and make sure that I can just like calm down at night with all that's going on in the world. The founders are amazing people. They really care about their supply chain, their sourcing. They do things the right way. And I asked them to hook you guys up with a little bit of a discount code. So if you want to try Ned out, just go to helloned.com/AG15 for 15% off and free shipping. That's HELLONED.com/AG15. That's AG15 for 15% off and free shipping. This episode is brought to you by Element, or LMNT, which is an electrolyte beverage brand founded by Rob Wolf, Luis Villasenor, and Tyler Cartwright. 2 of 3 of those guys have actually been on the show to talk about why they started this company and their background in this space. But mainly they have worked with literally thousands of people. And these are some of the most qualified experts that I learned a lot from in the early days of when I was doing keto and helping research and help a lot of people. And the number one thing that these guys saw was that people were having an extremely hard time switching to low carb because they were simply not getting enough electrolytes. But as you guys know, I often complain about the supplement industry is full of absolute trash, that people using artificial ingredients, fillers, sugar, etc. And they could not find an electrolyte that met their standards, not only from lack of ingredients, but not having the highest amount of sodium, potassium, and magnesium that they thought needed to exist in certain ratios. So they launched Element, and I drink them myself daily. So I've been a long time user, basically since the first day they launched. And whenever I go back to eating keto or lower carb after eating moderate amount of carbs, I need these things at least a couple times a day, or else I feel like crap. Especially in the summertime here in Austin, Texas, where it's 150 degrees every single day, and I'm working out outside, playing basketball, hanging out with friends, and sweating my face off. I typically have up to 4 of these in a day. My favorite is the citrus salt, which is the original one, but the raspberry and habanero are also my favorites as well. So if you guys want to hear more about element and my favorites and why I use it, head on over to drinklmnt.com/TNSP. That's drinklmnt.com/TNSP. All right, Tim, thanks for jumping on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome to be here.
Yeah, so I figured we dive right in for those of people who are not listening or watching and don't know you from The Last Dance and your amazing cameos there. Just maybe a background around your career and where you find yourself now.
Well, for people that don't know me, my name is Tim Grover. I've had a career of training some of the most elite athletes, especially in professional basketball: Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Charles Barkley, Tracy McGrady, NFL, currently working with NFL quarterback Russell Wilson. I've been in the business an extremely long time, played college basketball myself, have a master's degree in exercise science, and really into not even what I call the mindset space. I call it the winning space, because mindset is too general and I need to kind of narrow it down a little bit more. So what I do is I help individuals, whether they're in business, personally, athletes, understand what winning is all about.
What is winning to you?
Well, the best way to describe winning is how Kobe Bryant described it. He said, winning is everything. He said, winning is everything. And I asked him, I said, elaborate on that. And he goes, well, how do you feel when you win? I said, it's an unbelievable feeling. He says, well, how do you feel when I win? I said, unbelievable. He goes, how about when your kids win or somebody you're close? I said, you can't describe it. He said, exactly. That feeling you can only get from winning. That is everything. And everybody's definition of what winning is to them is different. How you feel is the same, but everybody's win could be completely different than what everybody else sees. Some people's, their wins are, raising unbelievable kids, their charitable contributions, their education, their softball team that they play at on a weekly basis, whatever it is. So you have to define what your win is and the feeling that it gives you.
Do you think it's an analogy for success?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Do you think it's an analogy for success for people?
Their definition of success, but everybody's definition of success is completely different. Like I said, for a lot of people, it's a shiny object. It's the cars, it's the houses, it's the money. It could be the timepiece that they're wearing. And for other people, success is like, hey, putting your kids through college, or having a charitable organization that is doing extremely great, or who's able to, provide for whatever it is providing for. Yeah, but there is definitely a correlation of winning and success in there. Sure.
And as far as you, obviously you're at the pinnacle and peak of your career for many decades, still there, but taking this turn to speaking, author, et cetera. And so has winning changed for you personally?
You know what? No, winning had the feeling of winning and the understanding of winning and the definition, it hasn't changed. I've always known what winning was about, especially with the individuals that I worked with. And it's not about the glory and it's not about the payday. Winning to me has always been about the obstacles, the challenges, and the pains you go through to get to that glory, to get to that payday, to really understand what the grind really means. Everyone talks about, man, I'm grinding. Well, what are you grinding for? Because if you just continue to grind, what are you going to end up? If you take an object and you keep grinding it, what happens? It turns into dust. So what does winning look like to you? When you start grinding towards it, what form do you want it to take? And that's what winning to me has always been, is understanding what I'm grinding for, what the obstacles are in front of me, what are the challenges, what are the pains that I have to go through in order to continue to get these wins, whether it's speaking, whether it's writing, whether it's training the athletes, CEOs, whatever it may be.
So it's almost winning equates to growth for you.
Yeah. Every time you win, every time you get, and there's wins available to us every single day. Every single moment you have an opportunity to win. And once you capture those wins, you do grow. You continue to grow with each little win that you get. And it's important to be able to recognize those wins, especially with everything that the is going on in the world, that went on in the world, man, a lot of us have forgotten what a win looks like, what it even feels like. So many times the wins are right in front of us and we walk right by it. So in order to grow, you got to stop, look, listen, and recognize, say, hey, these are wins.
Yeah. I mean, have you worked with plenty of people who, I'm just curious, people get momentum, they have these wins, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Is there a point where it just becomes too unachievable and people need to sort of reset their expectations and go for these little small daily achievable wins, get some momentum back? And then is that all just about framing and expectations? Or
you just can't go from nothing into this major win. But here's the problem. Everyone looks for the steps. Everybody looks for these steps, and when I was writing this book, Winning, everybody said, you have to have steps in it. You have to have steps in it. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Those steps are infinite, because everybody looks at 5 steps to greatness, 10 steps to winning, whatever it may be, 6 steps to success. Those steps are infinite. They're constantly changing. They're constantly shifting. A lot of times you don't know if those steps are in front of you. And that's what those small wins allow you to do. So once you get to that big win, it's a reset all over again for your next win and your next win and your next win. So you just can't stay there. You have to go back and start all over again. You may not have to physically start back where you were, but from a mental standpoint, whatever it took you to get to that win, you have to be willing to visit that over and over again.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, there's just been points in my life where I think I've achieved success, however I've defined it, and set my sights so grand and ground myself to dust where needed to reset. And like you said, sort of go back to fundamentals.
Listen, it was funny. I tell this story every single practice as a professional athlete, not in college, not in high school, as a professional. Michael Jordan started every practice off with a chest pass. A chest pass. You're talking about the greatest basketball player ever to play this game. What is a chest pass? It's the most fundamental, foundational principle of basketball. Every single day. So in order to achieve that win, you can't forget about your foundation. You can't forget about your fundamentals. A lot of us think we don't need those anymore, but when those wins don't come, those are the things we can rely on over and over again to make sure that those wins will appear again.
Yeah. I mean, what about for people who, like you said, sometimes you need to start small and go daily. I think that, like you said, the last year and a half has been really hard for a lot of people. So if somebody's in a rut, I think like the way I guess at least think about myself and my ability for capacity is, what does my personal physical health look like? Without that, there can be no mental health. That's just how I think about it. So
yes.
I need my wins with my personal health, and then it's my personal mental health. Then where's my mindset at? Am I being positive or negative? Am I operating from love or fear? And then others around me. And then I sort of shoot for these larger picture things. So for people who's maybe their lives are in disarray and they're needing to make some of these like small, simple wins to push themselves forward, like what does that look like on a daily basis?
Well, the physical and mental go so much hand to hand. I firmly believe that. It's the better my athletes and the individual I work with feel about themselves, how they take care of themselves, the sharper their mindset is, the sharper their edge is to get those wins over and over again. And you have to be, people always say, well, if I start taking care of myself, I have less time to focus in on those things, that allow me to get to that win. Well, that's because you're managing time. If you're managing focus, you have enough time to get in your workouts, take care of your daily health, because without that, like what you said, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you're not feeling, you can have all the success in the world, all right, and that you're not feeling well, and you end up going to the doctor. The money isn't important. All you want to do is be able to get rid of whatever you have, be able to take that extra breath, whatever it is. So taking care of yourself physically allows you to be more successful. It creates more clarity from a mindset standpoint, from a winning standpoint.
Have you seen any athletes you worked with that maybe didn't prioritize it that way and burned themselves out and couldn't get where they wanted to go and needed to sort of really take a lot of steps back and focus on their own health?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then now what happens is you have to spend so much time getting the health issue going, getting that put back into place, that it takes you farther and farther away from what your ideal win was. If you would have taken care of your health, you could have gotten that. You could have taken care of your health and gotten that ideal win at the same time. Now you have to, like you said, go all the way to the beginning and reset all over again. And it doesn't take much. It really doesn't take. It's not as difficult as people perceive it to be. You don't have to spend 3 hours in the gym. You don't even have to go to the gym. You monitor what you eat, hydrate, and get a workout in that's beneficial for you. People always ask me, when's the best time to work out? My answer is very simple. Whenever you can work out. That's it. Whenever you can work out. Whenever you can get it into your day, whenever you can get it into your daily schedule. Just like if you read a book or you listen to podcasts, those are workouts for your mind. Those are workouts for your mind. You got to get the workouts in for your physical too. Have to.
So with a lot of people, you said mindset's too general. What about the mindset when it comes to this type of stuff? I just see a lot of people on social media lately, very much victim mindset, very much blaming other people, not taking control, not being positive. So how do you think about mindset as an approach to even being able to see what you call wins on a day-to-day basis?
Well, you know what? To me, this is what anybody that has a victim mindset, this is how I look at it, is something happened in your life that put you into that mindset. Right? There's some adversity that was thrown your way, and it could have been at a very early age. It could be later on, later stages in your life. And the way you handle that situation or didn't handle that situation, or whether you ran from that situation, or whether you confronted it, determines whether you're going to have a victim's mentality or a victory mentality. I use this example a lot where you have individuals who are raised, children that are raised in broken homes, whether they have no parents or they only have one parent. And then you'll have that child, two different families. One will use it as a crutch and an excuse their whole life. And you use the other one that'll say, watch me. Watch what I'm gonna do with this adversity. Watch what I'm gonna do with it. So it's like feedback and criticism. It's exactly the same thing. It's just how you hear it. So what are you gonna do when that adversity comes? Are you gonna embrace it? Are you gonna admit it? If you had failure in it, are you gonna own up to it? I always say, individuals say, I tried my best. There's a big difference between trying your best. When you try your best, you give yourself an out. If you do your best, that's completely different. So doing your best gives you that victory mentality. Trying your best gives you that out and allows you exactly what you said, to be able to blame other individuals.
How do people shift that? I think that it's such a habitual thing. People get into that on a day-to-day basis and don't even realize that they've been there for years.
How you shift it is, the best way is, are you really who you are? Are you living your life? Or are you living somebody else's life? How much of this real estate in your head do you control, or does somebody else control? Are you pushing your own? Are you pushing your own buttons, or is other individuals pushing your buttons? I always say, I'm a very truthful individual. I always speak the truth. And the truth and honesty is what everybody asks for in a relationship. Well, a lot of individuals don't have that truth and honesty with the relationship with themselves. So they want truth and honesty with the relationship with everyone else, but they don't have the truth and honesty relationship with themselves. And then when other people are honest with them and they're not honest with themselves because they don't have that relationship, they end up dealing with more emotions when the truth should lead to more actions. And you can always tell when you've struck a nerve with an individual because they won't even let you finish your sentence, or you fire back at them really quick because you know they said something that was truthful about you, and you know it was truthful about you, but you're going to go play this victim mentality. And people love to do that because there's so many more people that will accept you in that stage. There'll be more people that will agree with you. There'll be more people that will surround you. That middle is filled with so many of those individuals. Like you said, there's so many of them, and it gets to be comfortable. It gets to be comfortable with them, and they get to exchange their stories and excuses with everybody else. And everybody justifies why you aren't there, and you're that. Everybody agrees with it. Yeah. And then you have that one individual who's in a smaller room by themselves or in a separate space over there, and they're like, they have a hard time understanding what conversation is going on in that other room.
So do you think it's a lot around who you surround yourself with?
It has a lot to do with who you surround yourself with. I'd rather surround myself with no one than surround myself with those individuals. It's you have an identity, you have the same topic. All right. And you ask the same topic to a room with a bunch of successful high achievers, and the same question in a room with people that are not achieving, not winning, that are blaming others. It's totally two different conversations. And it could be adversity. You could talk about failure on both of them. You could talk about failure. You don't have to be talk about winning. You could talk about something that's going on, some tragedy that's gone in their lives. And the people that are successful will be having a completely different discussion on how they handle the situation, how they owned up to it, how it's making them currently feel, how it made them feel in the past. Then you have the people that surround themselves with a victim's mentality, and their conversation is completely different. And I guarantee you, one room is going to be way bigger than the other.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So one of the things that I think that I've observed in myself, maybe I have this large in the distance win that I want to have, success, achievement, whatever. Breaking it down to digestible steps, I think for a lot of people it can be challenging. For me, I tend to over intellectualize it and get in too rigid of a pattern. I must do this or else I'm not progressing, when usually when I go with a little bit more of my intuition and with how I feel in that moment, I actually achieve the goals faster and with more effort, with less effort. I'm just curious with your clients, especially the ones who've excelled the most. Did they have a really strict regimented process? Did they go with, I sort of feel like I should be practicing this or that today, or my body needs rest instead of a lot of work? So I think that a lot of people think of, winning equals goals equals this super regimented thing. And for me, I've noticed that doesn't work that well. And so just curious on when to get out of your head into your body.
They have both. They have both. In the first book I wrote, Relentless, I just said, there's a thing where, listen, your instincts, you have to trust your instincts. But when you're so good and you get to these high levels, your instincts trust you, meaning exactly what you said. You know what? I don't need to be as regimented. This is what I want to work on today. I may need a day off here, or you know what? Let's focus on this. They have routines. They have routines that allow them to focus more on the uncontrollable things. And when you have things that are uncontrollable, you have to know whether it's something that you can either handle or something your instincts will tell you this is right, this is wrong. So the best athletes and the best CEOs, they have the ability to do both of them. They have a routine that allows them to set the day up for success, but it's also flexible where things come in and they'll be like, okay, I don't need to do this today. I'm going to go over here. Most people have their routines just out of boredom. They do the things out of boredom over and over and over again, just to get through the day. Because again, when I said this, they don't trust themselves. But you have to be able to trust yourself. Your instincts are going to guide you and tell you what is right, what is wrong, majority of the time. That's the difference between what to think and how to think. The people that have those regimens that are so strict over and over and over again, those individuals are what to think. They listen to a podcast, they follow these social media gurus or all everything, and they're all telling them what to think, what to think, what to think. All right. When you have the ability of knowing how to think, all right, there's a huge difference between that. How to think is internal. It's internal. It's you. It's unique to your ability to understand what works for you and what may not work for somebody else.
Talk to me about you were saying uncontrollable versus controllable situations. How do you think about the difference between the two?
Well, I mean, there's certain things, certain aspects of your day you can kind of control. All right, with the athletes, they got the practice times are pretty much on schedule. What they eat is pretty much on schedule when they're not traveling. All right, so you try to control as many variables in practice. All right, because because the variables in a game are not going to be controllable. You're going to be playing in front of 20, 30,000 people. You're going to have referees on there. You don't know exactly what the other team is going to happen. There's a lot more pressure during those game situations. So that's why if you can control what you can control in that environment and master that, when you get to the uncontrollables, some of the controllables will be in the uncontrollable environment. If you haven't mastered how to control those things, you're going to have to deal with more uncontrollable stuff. And every day we have to deal with uncontrollable stuff. Look at the pandemic. The pandemic is a perfect example of something that was uncontrollable for all of us. It was kind of thrown at us, and it was like, okay, here's how we're going to deal with it, and everybody had to deal with it in different ways. So if you have certain things under control, it kind of makes it easy to know, hey, when this uncontrollable variable comes in, the things that I have in control, I've got this, I've got these handles. Now let's see what this thing is going to throw at me.
Yeah, it's interesting, just word choice. I just think about how I've responded to trying to control so many things in the past. And it's driven me fucking nuts sometimes, just having to micromanage every single detail. And I think for me, the way I frame it is more intentionality. And like you said, okay, I have the availability to be intentional about what I eat or how I train or these type of things. And then being okay that there is uncontrollable times and sort of surrendering to that, but being able to dance with that unpredictability. I think when trying to control uncontrollable things is where it gets really challenging. And I think like having that nuance, that understanding around, oh, this is something that I can be intentional about. Not necessarily control everything, but it's, the difference between I can sort of guide this experience versus not has helped me at least loosen up quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it. I mean, it's just, I use as an example, when you go to the gym all the time, there's 50 ways to do an exercise, and a person will be on a piece of equipment and they'll literally just stand there until you get off the equipment. They're like, I have to use that. I have to use that. I have to use that piece of equipment. If I'm going to work my chest, I have to have the bench press. Well, there's 40 other exercises you can do to work your chest area, but people are just like, here, this is what I have. This is what I have to do, because that's the area they think they're control. They think they're controlling it, and they're like, all right, well, this situation it's uncontrollable today. Let me go do something else instead of freezing.
Yeah. How do you respond to some of the uncontrollable things in life?
Well, say that again.
How do you respond to some of the uncontrollable things in life?
You know what? I kind of prepare myself for whatever's thrown at me, and if it's thrown at me, I deal with it. All right, you just kind of like it's coming every single day. It's coming every single day. All right, so I never look at anything as a problem. So usually, sometimes when something uncontrollable is thrown at you, people look at it as a problem. I look at it as a situation. All right, it's a situation. It's a situation to learn. It's a situation to grow. It's a situation to figure out. And I actually enjoy the uncontrollable because it keeps me alert. It keeps me on my toes. It keeps me sharp. I don't like the daily routine over and over and over and over again. I like the challenges of of the uncertainty. It keeps me excited. It keeps me alive. It's like something that you look forward to. Hopefully all the uncontrollables are not something, health related or family related. But if you can deal with the other uncontrollable stuff, listen, you are going to have health related issues. You are going to have family related issues. If you've had no experience at dealing with the uncontrollable and knowing how it feels and what you have to do about it and how to adjust and pivot with a purpose, then when those major things happen, you're going to be totally lost. You will literally be frozen.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the things you said that stuck out to me, at least, is what's the lesson? What's the lesson in the unpredictable, uncontrollable times? And I think that with every situation in life, there's always, I think a mindset shift to have is, what's the lesson here? What am I learning?
Yeah. And don't we all want to grow? We all want to grow from learning. It's like the old adage, like, listen, if you're blessed enough to open your eyes and put your feet on the ground, it's a great day. Everything else is up to you. Everything else is up to you. And for people that don't have that opportunity, they would love to have a bunch of uncontrollable things thrown at them.
Right. Well, how have some of the people that you've worked with who have been these high achievers responded to failure? Is it, what do I learn? How do I get better? Or what's the sort of thought process and the way they approach that?
Well, here's the way they've handled failure. So you hear this all the time, like if you get knocked down, you fail, you need to jump right back up. These individuals never do that. They never do that. All right, because if you fall and you fail and you jump right back up, you're standing up the exact same person that you fell. And you're going to get knocked down again. You're going to get knocked down again. You knocked down again. Every time you fall and fail, you have to stand up differently. So this is what I always say. When you get knocked down and you fail, stay down there for a little bit. Figure out why you were down there. What got you down there? And if you stand up, will it happen again? So, because when you stand up, you have to stand up differently. So when you fall and fail and you stand up, you got to stand up smarter. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to fall and fail again. You have to stand up smarter. When you knock down and when you get knocked down and fall again, you have to stand up with more resiliency. So when you knock down and stand up, fall again, all the way, you have to stand up a different person. You have to stand up better. And that's how these individuals understand and use failure. And they know it's a part of winning. You can't have winning without failure. You cannot have it. You're going to spend more time in the failure zone than you will in the winning zone. They go hand in hand. And if you cannot handle failure, there's no way you're going to be able to handle winning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think of failure. I think that there's winning and there are lessons. I think that Ray Dalio quote that is amazing is pain plus reflection equals progress.
Yeah.
It's one of these things about, if you have a failure, being able to ask yourself earnestly and take some time of reflection, say, what happened here?
Yeah.
Am I on the wrong? Is this track even right for me? I think a lot of people do chase things that are internal. You talked about earlier. Is this a personal truth? Or is this something that somebody else has defined for me that I'm walking?
Yeah.
Being able to reflect that, I think, is always the core thing that you have to look at. Is this what I want truly? Okay. Yes, it is. Great. Now what? Why am I here? How do I stand up differently, as you say? I think that's crucial.
It's huge. It's huge. Listen, people, you can put a lot of different words on however you want to put failure, reflection, setback, whatever it is, whatever your definition is of it. It's how are you going to use it? Are you going to use it? Is it going to pummel you? Is it going to crush you? Are you going to learn from it? Are you just going to be like, are you just going to settle? Are you just going to settle for it? And like what you said is the most important part. Is this something that you truly want, or is it something that somebody else is pushing you towards? Is it something else that other people want you to succeed in? This is, it's their passion, it's their fight, it's their drive, and they're trying to get the success because they couldn't do it. Now they're trying to get it out of you.
Yeah, I think controversial thing you had in your last book, and it also came up in this one, is the separation between emotions and performance.
Yes.
Just curious in your take on that.
Well, you know what? I always just say, you're a coach, you say this all the time. Play with emotions. Play with emotion. Well, what emotion you want me to play with? You're telling 11 players on a team play with emotion, and everybody's like, well, which emotion you want me to play with? Everybody's got different emotions. Or play angry or play mad. Well, a lot of people can't play angry. They can't play mad. All right. Some people need to play calm. Others needs to play happy. What do you want? It's all different. You play with energy. You play with energy. So a lot of emotions out there all at the same time. I said this, emotions make you weak. And the important part of that is the S at the end, emotions. If you're going to go out there and play with an emotion, play with one emotion. Play with that one emotion, because that way you eliminate the roller coaster high of being of up and down, going from one emotion to the other. So you get with individuals, and when they do get emotional, that's when you've hit a chord with them. That's the time to strike with those people. All right. So emotions do make individuals weak. They do. People don't want to admit it. I'm not telling you not to be emotional. There are times where you can, but in order to win consistently over and over again, and I say this in winning all the time, your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. Think about every bad decision you've made in life. All right. Your feelings made those decisions. Your feelings made those decisions. Every time you don't feel like getting out of bed, that's your feelings and emotions. Your mind tells you to get up. All right. Your mind tells you to make decisions. Your feelings make you overthink the things over and over again. What you said earlier about trusting about your instincts, about going with your intuition. All right. And then when you have disappointment and failure, your feelings tell you to hold on to it. Your emotions tell you to hold on to this. I can't let go of this because I'm so emotional. Well, your mind says, hey, I can handle this disappointment. I can handle this failure. I can handle this setback. And let's move on.
Yeah. I think it can be a tricky thing, though. I think
it's very tricky.
This is the thing where I think I've honed that skill so much over the last 15 plus years that sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. And now I'm trying to go back and develop more of an emotional capacity to be able to look at that side and have more of a balanced approach. So yeah, I'm just curious as far as that front goes. Do you have anybody that you worked with that got too overdeveloped in that way, and then their personal life suffered? Where they express love or happiness or joy or any of these things. Like what is that?
It does. It does. You know what? Hey, listen. Everybody talks about balance. Everyone talks about balance. There's so many books out there that are written on balance. How everybody needs to have that. You need to have a balanced life. Or look at yourself when you were climbing the charts in your businesses and in your podcast and everybody else, and everybody's trying to say, oh, listen, you need to create more balance. You need to have more balance. You don't find balance. You create it. You create balance, and your definition of balance is completely different than somebody else's definition of balance. All right. Like I said, you don't find balance, you create it. And it's different for each individual in here. All right. I don't want the scales fully tilted from one side to the other, but you have to decide what that balance is during that moment. And what makes you happy during that time? Is something else going to have to be put off to the side? Yes. Everyone talks about living a balanced life. It's funny. The only time they want to discuss a balanced life is after, they've had their numerous wins and they've had their successes and they had all this stuff. They don't want to talk about how unbalanced their life was when they were getting to that point. And for a lot of individuals, that's why when they finish one endeavor, whether it's moving from one business to another or from retiring from a professional sport, the competitive nature doesn't stop. It doesn't stop, because that competitive thing needs it. If it doesn't help them create balance in their lives, they're going to start doing destructive things. And I look at it this way. I was like, I ask individual who wants zero happiness. Nobody will raise their hand. I was like, well, who wants zero success? Nobody will raise their hand. So who wants zero love? Nobody will raise their hand. All right. And then look at the number on a perfectly balanced scale. It's a 0. So if you try to get all those things all the time, everything, time for everything equals time for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's okay to be able to choose. And I think that's part of the game. And like you said,
it is. I think it's more than okay to choose. I think it's a necessity. It's a necessity, but it's funny. Everybody that tells you need more balance in the life, they're so unbalanced. They're even more unbalanced than you are, and they're not happy. They're not successful. Truly happiness and truly success. There's a big difference between showing it on social media and actually living it.
Yeah, not to say happiness is the be all end all, but curious if there's any people that you worked with who went down this road, achieved everything, and were miserable.
Well, they certain aspects of their lives, yeah, they would have probably said, hey, if I had a chance to do it all over again, would I have done it differently? I don't know if they would have. But they knew that some aspect of their life is not going to be as successful as the other. I tell this story in the book Winning. I mean, my daughter I traveled quite a bit for work, and when she was 5 years old, and she goes up to me and she goes, Daddy, why do you travel so much? And I said, I said, honey, this is how I provide for my family. This is how I provide for you. This is how I provide for mom. This is how I put food on the table. All right. And she goes up to me. She goes, Daddy, if I eat less, will you stay home more? If I eat less, will you stay home more? At age 5. Man, you talk about hitting me with a knife. Okay, in a fairy tale, I would have unpacked my suitcase and, we would have given each other a big hug and kiss and went out for ice cream. I kept packing. So there are times in it that it's just, things just don't work. They just don't work. Now, later on in life, when I had the conversation with her about it, and she goes, Dad, I understand. She goes, you actually set an example for me. She said, you set an example on what it meant for your happiness, the results it gave the family, and the ability to say no at the hardest decisions. So the reward may not come right away. And like you said, they could be unhappy. But if you stick with what you believe and be true, the end result will come your way.
Yeah, and I think that's the personal truth for you.
Yes.
And I don't think you're recommending that everybody travel and not spend time with them. Like
I'm
maybe,
not.
yeah, maybe the family having the ice cream fairy tale is winning or success for somebody, and that's totally fine too. And I think that a lot of people take your message and twist it and put words in your mouth. And so, I mean, this is the thing that you talked about earlier, like we mentioned, is the personal truth. Is this what's important to you? And then finding all the obstacles in the way, and then how do you best have a strategy to overcome those obstacles?
Yeah, and then to a lot of people, they'd be like, "Oh, listen, you failed as a parent. I did not fail as a parent. All right, you may not have agreed with my decision, but that was your decision. You could have handled the situation any way you wanted to. But a lot of people do handle it the same way I did, but just are afraid to talk about it because they're afraid about being judged. Like I said earlier, I tell the truth. It's in the book. It's exactly what happened, and I got no problem. I got no problem sharing it.
What keeps you going now that you've achieved the same thing over and over and over again, as far as peak?
You know what? It's what's next. It's what's next. It's forget about what I achieved yesterday. Forget about what I achieved years ago. It's about what's next. Hey, yesterday isn't coming for me today. Today does not care about tomorrow. So I need to provide and be the best version of myself and portray it and try to help as many people as I can. All right. And, winning is selfish. It is selfish. And each day I take care of myself. And the reason I take care of myself, because the better I take care of myself, the more I can take care of other individuals. So that's what kind of keeps me going every single day. And at this stage in my life, being a little, I don't call myself older. I call myself seasoned. I like to use that word instead. Yes, experience. That one too. So you have to take care of yourself, because it's funny. Each day that goes by, it's like selfish gets a bad name. And it's funny, as you get older, you start to realize how important self-care and selfishness is. But we like to give it like fancy words. We like, me time, or people call it, like man cave, or, it's guys night out, girls night out. Well, that's all considered selfish, because it's about you. All right. But you need those times. You need those times for yourself. And that's what allows me to constantly give to others, because I take care of myself. I take time for myself. I take time to educate myself. I take time for self-care, because the more I do that now, the more lives I can touch.
And I think that's the way to go about making the world a better place, man. So appreciate the message. I think it gets misconstrued sometimes, especially when it's wrapped into athletics and sort of a masculine energy like you have. And this society we live in doesn't prize that right now. It's a little bit demonized. So I appreciate you continuing going at it your own way, man. It's really inspiring. So why don't you give people a little bit of information where they can find the book and any other work that you're doing?
I'm like the easiest person to find. The book's available everywhere. The first book is called Relentless. The second book is called Winning. And they're available wherever books are sold, online, every platform, Audible, Kindle, whatever you need. You can get it from Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, wherever books are sold. I'm the easiest person to find. The website is timgrover.com, and my Instagram is @TimGrover. If you can't find me, you're not looking.
All right, Tim. Well, thanks again, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Anthony. Take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Natural State Podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I'd really appreciate you heading over to whatever service you're listening to this podcast on, dropping me a 5-star review and your thoughts on the show. This helps us get discovered by more people and spreading the good gospel of health. And if you want to stay plugged into all of my self-health experiments, recent research and books that I'm reading and my interpretations of those things, products that I'm testing, and thoughts on all things related to health, check out my free weekly newsletter called The Feed. You can sign up for that at dranthonygustin.com/thefeed. That's dranthonygustin.com/thefeed. Thanks again for tuning in and your support of the Natural State Podcast.